Hey there, my name's Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. This week, we welcome back the band Ice Climber. If you aren't familiar with their work, you got to check out their debut record as soon as you're done with this podcast. They perform under the banner of capital R rock, but it blends so many other genres for a unique experience. I got to catch up with Xochi, Jujo, Sage, post-album release, and post-birthday show to get their perspective on the band's creative process, how it feels to have a definitive Ice Climber record out, and just kind of balancing the world of the band. It's always a good time to chat with these people. It's Ice Climber, and they're right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. How's it going?
Wonderful.
Hello.
Well, cool. And so most of y'all are friends of the pod. Sage didn't join originally, but let's quick have everybody just kind of introduce themselves and say what they do in Ice Climber.
I'm Jujo, and I play the bass guitar in the group.
My name's Sage, and I play saxophone.
And you do backing vocals.
Yeah, sometimes they let me yell things, which is very kind.
I'm Xochi, and I do vocals and sound manipulation, and on occasion, I will also conduct.
Well, we don't have to get into the backstory of the band. If they want to kind of listen to more of that, they can go find the original, I think it's the 2023 episode. So we're kind of going to hop into the self-titled album which was just released as of February, a couple weeks since, I think, as of recording this episode. And how does it feel to have the self-titled Ice Climber record out in the world now?
Oh, it feels so great.
Yeah.
Great to just get a lot of stuff out of us to release a whole lot, physically, mentally. It's just kind of been, I've kind of just been just kind of recuperating from the whole process, honestly.
It's really nice in that sometimes when we were kind of looking back at the songs we would write, we'd be looking at these videos kind of taken from friends of ours or fans that, we'd have the whole song kind of filmed, but it was really tough to kind of go back and like pick out what we wanted to progress and bring to another show. And I think with the album, we kind of did that work, and now we have something like kind of a very solid foundation for shows that we play going forward.
Yeah. I mean, it feels great. It sounds great. Ali Jafar did an amazing job with it. Having 3 years really allowed me to flesh out my part of those songs, so I feel pretty proud of it. In that regard, I'm pretty proud of my vocal performance versus like me 7 years ago, for instance. I think if I would have tried to record something around then, might have had a bigger range in some aspects, but it would have been not as inspired. But yeah, kind of along the lines of what Jujo was saying, it feels like a relief as well.
Yes.
We had two really incredible people that were part of Ice Climber for a couple of years, Ella and Andy, who are also in Udemon and other projects. And it felt like this is the culmination of what we did with them, and as well with other people, but like they helped us put those guitars in a more immortal form so that other people who come after can jump in and bring Ice Climber wherever else it needs to go. So it does feel like a closing of a chapter in a way, and it was emotionally tasking, not just tasking because we did it all in like a day and a half, basically.
Yeah. And now that everything is like done and out there, are you guys feeling like you can maybe take a deep breath and kind of decide what you want to do next, or are you guys kind of wanting to keep capitalizing on kind of the momentum that this record has kind of given y'all? Because you guys have been going kind of ham since, January, with your interviews and being out and about, and you had your big birthday show. Are you guys able to take that like deep breath?
Oh yeah, I mean, I haven't even posted about how awesome the show was, or anything, just because kind of taking a breath myself, and I figured everybody else is. Like I've been even using our group chat to like just talk about other things, but yeah, still setting out some like, you know, hey, take a listen and review the record if you want, but as far as a tour or like shows promoting the album, we haven't really planned any of that.
Yeah. So let's kind of get into the album a little bit and talk about it, because like y'all have said, it was 3 years in the making. Getting into putting this piece together and orchestrating this document for the band. What was the process like for writing? Because some of these songs have been around for a few years. The practice I sat in on, I noticed that y'all were still writing out some pieces even a week in before the album, just kind of tightening and growing and changing things. Kind of, what was that process like to put these songs to paper like that?
I can't imagine many bands operate the way we do. We didn't ever intend for the improv to be part of the songwriting, but over the years it kind of has become that, because you do something live and you have that like bottled lightning moment, but then you have fans or people that come out or became a fan because of that set, and they want to hear more like it. So then sometimes, depending on who you're playing with and whatnot, who we were playing with, we would try to align with the sounds that were happening that night, but also throw in these moments that we had played in shows prior. It may not have been the show the last week or even a month before that one, but it was something that felt inspired and people said something about it, so we kept it. And like Sage was saying earlier, it's pretty cool that we've had a lot of our sets recorded, because then we were able to look back on it and be like, well, I can't 100% tell what's going on here or there, but we can take that and run with it. And so some of the songs that we have on the album are a product of that. And some of them are really just one of us feeling playful. It's actually the three of us here that would be the ones that would create a sound that becomes something more devised. Whether it's me thinking like, oh, I have this idea, and then Sage is like, I have a sax line, or Jujo just playing a bass line, and we're like, hey, I know you're just goofing off, but what if we took that and added this to it?
That is like something that is really fun about Ice Climber too, is the amount of songs we have with kind of cool bass starts and things like that, or even just like kind of the opener to the self-title, where you have James kind of take on a soundscape and then just kind of drop in out of there with like a sax bass kind of combo riff. I think that's really, really fun. I think almost, if I was going to mark it before the self-title than after it, it's kind of like before that we would have to make kind of decisions, kind of snap and really listen down to each other. But one of the things that was nice is even being separated into different rooms at Flower Studio, it really felt like we didn't have to listen as intently to each other. We definitely did, but it wasn't as kind of as on edge, like, should I take these chances? It was kind of almost relieving in a way.
And the reason you saw us kind of tightening stuff even at the recording day is because we all are very busy people, whether it's because of work, family, friends, other circumstances or projects. We're all so busy that it isn't usually possible to get together super often. We had made agreements like months in advance that like, all right, since we missed this recording day, we're going to have to really like lock in and get these Tuesdays in on for like the next month or the next month and a half, and then we take a break, and then we do it for the rest of January or whatever until the show. So we did have a chunk of time then where we were meeting up regularly, but like usually we would get to meet like once a month, if even, and that's if we were like trying to nail some like experience or sound or song that we had thought up. or there was like a specific show where we're like, okay, we have this idea, but instead of just letting it play out in a live setting, let's at least meet up once or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So then like everything that we were doing during this practice, like, okay, so we're revisiting this. What are our notes, and what are some notes to keep us on track, and so that there's the least amount of takes possible?
Let's see. I know I myself was a little kind of piggyback off of what Zoe says about us not meeting as frequently. I was a little on edge that we would get these forms down
Mm-hmm.
before our recording session, but I think we have a lot of experience in this group, a lot of like resilience. So even if there are setbacks, I know we always work around them, and kind of holds true to the album there. And I will say I will miss just bouncing ideas off of Andy and Ella, of my fellow stringed folks.
Yeah.
They were uh, such a such like moody guitarists. They can experience and go through a lot of like light and darkness. So that was uh, just expansive and very, it was a thrill to try to hook
Yeah.
onto them and and just keep up with them too. They're so brilliant.
Yeah.
Just one thing I'd add to that is just kind of talking about guitarist Andy and Ella. I would say, at least compared to me, they do some of the heavy kind of songwriting duties outside of Ice Climber too. So they bring a lot of that to us. Like I don't write for too many other bands that I'm in. A lot of times with saxophone, you know, you just kind of write for yourself, and I'm not really composing much songs. But Andy and Ella definitely brought a lot of their kind of composing experience and just the way that they like to list out progressions in songs. And I thought that was really helpful. I think Paul kind of operates as he has this really good sense of like phrasing and timing and things, not just in percussion, like by the meter, but just kind of across songs and kind of understanding where big changes kind of could happen or should happen. But Andy and Ella are really good at just putting it to a page or a whiteboard and making sure that we all kind of see it and get it. So that was nice. And Xochi had really, really fleshed out lyric notes for all of us, which was really helpful for me, at least, because I kind of write my sax lines to counteract certain vocal lines. So it just kind of gave me a good backbone to look at.
How did you decide what older songs were going to make the cut over, you know, kind of going with some of the newer material and some of the material that came out of, you know, like a bong, like Weed Sick is like a Bong Climber song kind of a thing. You know, He Deserved Less came from the Rage Party era, and kind of I have known of that song for a minute, and I think there's at least one other. I don't know if I fully wrote it down. All I Know Is Death is another one that's kind of transformed and grown from also the Rage Party era. But how did you decide which songs would kind of make the cut for the self-titled?
Picking songs based on personnel really helps. Definitely going back and picking more of the guitar-oriented songs. So I know we've had an array of instrumentalists over the years. Yeah,
I think we were pretty optimistic about different musicians we could bring in, and unfortunately, kind of getting to that bit about how everyone's busy. Some of the artists we wanted to collaborate with couldn't make it. So I think when we officially kind of started picking songs for that set list, we were trying to bring in just a wide variety of different musicians. So a lot of those songs I think were picked when we played just interesting shows with people that we might not normally have. So there was one song that didn't make it onto the album, and that was Glass Sandwich. And the real thought behind that was bringing in Zelda, who's just like an amazing multi-instrumentalist in the area, obviously. So, you know, just I think the instrumentation was kind of what drove us. We wanted variety, but we also wanted to bring in people that we've really made interesting things with before.
Yeah, I'm. That's a good. That's a good. What do you call it? Duplicity. That's the good duplicity of it all. Like songs that like Ella and Andy would shine on, especially knowing that it's probably their last record. We didn't know for sure, but we had a feeling. And also songs that people could jump in on and add instrumentation to, whether it's horn or wind or string instruments and whatnot. Not that any of the songs couldn't. It's just those felt like some songs we really wanted to record. But also there's another factor that really helped with choosing the soundtrack, and it's like, all right, so we want to have some of these songs that just haven't been recorded in years, that are fan favorites. Little Secret, Gato de un Pata. We got to record this. We got to have a studio recording of them. And the ones that weren't brand new and inspired for this moment were songs that we wanted to immortalize that were a long time coming, and otherwise like geared towards the seven of us who we felt were like the quote unquote council of Sherpas.
And like thinking about the songs that kind of you really wanted to make up this and kind of really kind of represent what you could do and what you wanted to show, you kind of cover a lot of. I have like my phone and I kept looking down at the set list, just as I was like thinking about the songs on this record and how kind of they kind of cover a lot of ground both thematically and like lyrically. You have, you know, some of the more intense stuff, like, you know, He Deserved Less, or like kind of All I Know Is Death, or you have some of the more fun songs like, you know, Little Secret or Gato Dune. I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, I'm sorry. Like Gato, and or like, you know, you're kind of more straightforward, almost like consistently inconsistent, almost gives me kind of that Black Flag kind of like the comedic element of some of their songs a little bit too. And you guys cover a lot. And how did you feel about kind of deciding what you wanted to be, like an album that was going to be an Ice Climber record? Or like, were you thinking about like it needs to follow a certain thematic path, or, you know, kind of that way? I think I'm asking a lot of questions that all kind of
I
don't fully
you.
go in like a proper direction.
From the beginning, it's always been kind of like a joke, but also kind of true to our sound. Is we're an acid rock band, you know, and like, what is that? Is this just something you say to like give an answer, and it's just kind of like a let them decide what it is. I mean, at first it was because I just wanted to get on with it, you know, like I still was figuring out what Ice Climber was, but the more we kept it around as like our like bass genre, the more we embodied it, whether people who were playing with us like realize it or not. Like acid rock kind of like gives me the feeling of like something that is both joyous, expansive, but also corrosive. And sometimes, you know, we can interchange rock with punk, acid rock. You know, famous acid rock bands like the Grateful Dead were band that would do many different types of genres. The Flaming Lips is a big inspiration for me, even if I can't stand Wayne Coyne anymore. It was a big inspiration for me because they did all sorts of genres as well. But yeah, going back to it, it's like Ice Climber is a capital R rock band. And we get that we are experimental, so thus we add this like adjective that kind of explains a little bit but doesn't explain anything, because I feel like a lot of modern music is so expansive too, you know, like it's hard to label something. I was listening to something in my living room, and my friend who was a local drummer and now lives in Philly, Jay Steve, love you, man. He comes downstairs like, "What are you listening to?" And it was like some of the early M83, and I was like, "Oh, this like indie artist M83 it would be okay if you made fun of me for liking it, because like his newer stuff is way more poppy and
Mm-hmm.
and sugary and stuff. But he was like, "What? Indie rock? That's nah, man. This is like proto metal." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I don't know what he was hearing, but like I think it's because of like the drum machines that they have in those early albums. Of like, I was like, okay, I can kind of see how like it sounds like black metal in some ways, but it just goes to show you that like, yeah, a genre can't explain everything. But here I am hoping that like acid rock gives the meaning, gives meaning to everything that we put together, because like the album does have all those different moods that you say, and it's like, sure, sometimes people can't imagine like some humor being alongside some of the like saddest themes that you can imagine, but without any levity, darkness just feels like a little too heavy-handed.
Yeah.
No, and I'm really glad you had a balance of light and dark on this album. And I think it's funny too, because this is still like one side of us.
Yeah, because we got all these like long, dramatic, building songs that we can do and have done over and over, and they come out differently, of course, because they're very like improv, like heavy, and they're meant to be that way. And Jujo wanted to record one in specific that I call Summer Fool, and that's on our like That's What I Call Ice Climber like live album that we put out like 2 years ago. But I think Jujo loves it because it can go so many different places. I don't know. Why do you love it?
I think that's why. Like it's very difficult for me to try to stay in one place or like even genre or thought. Like I have to explore genres, explore rhythms and feelings and such. And it's been great, like just to have the acceptance too of everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, my climber brethren, we're gonna climb every genre, climb every mountain.
And I know Paul and Andy and Ella were like that too. That's part of the reason why Andy and Ella like playing with us so much. James has more range than most people realize as well, because James is known for the noise music that he makes. Although recently he's been exploring with the ambient stuff more and drone stuff with me. But I'm curious about Sage here, because like Sage is a little more rigid with his genres.
This, honestly, just to kind of even go back to that, this is Ice Climber. That's what I call Ice Climber. One of my favorite things about Xochi and Ice Climber, because I joined the band 2 years ago, and we just celebrated our 3rd year, was the way that Xochi would kind of drop a lot of these live recordings and just give people something. Like I thought that was really cool. And then thanks to Tom, who was a video audio archivist at the first show that I played with Ice Climber 2 years ago at Punk Rock Bowling at Memory Lanes, those recordings went up really quickly too on our Instagram and on our Spotify and also on the radio. So that was really nice. I am a little bit more genre rigid, and so it has been a real transition for me to learn how to kind of work into noise rock and elements of that we do, and then particularly something like Weed Sick, which is really cool that we could have recorded that, because I've been on both sides of that song, and then I've played bass at one of our 420 shows a while back and filled in for that song along with some covers. So honestly, Ice Climber has been like the biggest expansion to my musical ability, and also just my musical palette and understanding, which has been really nice. I'm kind of like a meticulous overthinker when it comes to playing music. I don't have a huge amount of creative attributes. At least I don't consider them that way. And so a lot of times I will really overthink rules along music theory and things like that. And I think playing in a live setting, that doesn't really matter and that doesn't really help. So it really kind of pushed me out of my boundaries to try and find other stuff. And then just even just speaking the genre, like I was able to bring a lot of kind of my Latin ska background, but that's such a weird thing to bring. And it's been so kind of welcomed in Ice Climber. There's not a huge amount of bands that you can, that would even be like, oh, we want to hear that sax player. But thankfully, Ice Climber is definitely a place for that. So that's been really nice for me too.
I mean, we have already talked to you about how Sage and I started becoming friends. It was a pact made in blood. So people will get to hear about that some other time. But I mean, as soon as we were just talking over beers and he told me he was a sax player, I was like, I have a feeling this motherfucker is a badass sax player. I have a feeling that this motherfucker has so much to show here, and I'm gonna get it out of him. And that was my mission from like that moment on, is to like find out where I could take Sage, because it's a journey that we took together.
Definitely.
Because I remember the first time I got him to do noise with us, he was so hesitant and reluctant, and it showed. He seems so uncomfortable, but like, you're not gonna get anywhere if you're not uncomfortable, at least some of the time, right?
Yeah.
So it was awesome to hear the culmination of like all the different places we've gone together as ice climbers here, Jujo and Sage and I, with Paul and the rest of the crew, of course. But I say that because like you really hear it in the album in all the different moods, like Sage flexing those sax muscles that he's built over time, especially with the long-standing Latin ska, but like definitely taking it into like the, like as someone said, new wave sax, like melody and whatnot. It hearing Sage so present in the album like that was very joyful for me, and I think everybody else can agree with that. Brought a lot to the album. And then just to circle back, like I did give a lot of thought to how the album would flow, and that's kind of what decided like what made it into the album, what didn't. And it's like, okay, we have already all these long songs, so Glass Sandwich is kind of a gamble, and we don't have the time for it, so better to keep working on it and put it on a second album. And I think it's going to make a glorious closer to album number 2. And the rest of the songs, it's like, okay, well, we're starting out with this like weird but like kind of new wavy song. Where do we go from there? Let's add this like more post-punky song. It's a little dark, but like I think it kind of goes with the like sardonic mood of the first one. We thought about all this stuff, and it's like, how can we get as much of Ice Climber but still kind of leaving people wanting more and have a good flow? It all happened together, but like I think the three of us here really gave it a lot of thought, because Ella and Andy, after a while, they just kind of were like, we're really happy to just walk through this with you guys because we have other things going on. And Paul's like, I'm just behind the drums, man. You tell me what to do. And James is like, I'll play to anything. I'll add you washes. I'll add you noise, whatever you want, to whatever it is you want.
I think James will add our live sound in. I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of how we go on these 10.
Yeah. And I did want to ask about one of the fan favorites, which is I have a little secret, or little secret, I should say. Which talk to me about how you landed on the secrets that you included. Some of them were band submitted. Did that's a song that you also have audience participation on. Was that one that you solicited additional secrets to share from like audience members, or just like put a call out and be like, hey, you got a secret you want to share on our record? Like,
I wanted to have the band give secrets if they wanted to, for sure. Because well, putting on a call like that would be a lot of work, right? And then be like, all right, can you make it to these days?
Yeah.
That could have been cool. And maybe we'll record a little secret again. Maybe there'll be a little secret too or something. But I chose the secrets that were the most ridiculous that I shared live already, for the ones that I shared. And the ones that the band shared were just what they brought to the next rehearsal after I had asked them to. And I did it so that, like, I mean, I did it with like the intention that they would bring secrets that have to do with more than just pissing and shitting. Because for a good while, that's what the audience was sharing with us. Because, I mean, it's a lot to share intimate secrets, as little as they are with like an audience, whether it's 10 people or 50 or 100, whatever the case. It's a lot. So some people would just be like, I'm just going to share about pissing myself, whatever. Everybody does it. But it's also still something that feels like personal and like a secret. It's like, okay, cool. Well, here are a slew of 6-7 secrets that are not about that. And hopefully y'all get inspired to come to the show and share a secret that is silly. And that's kind of the thought process behind that one.
I've really enjoyed when like fans of ours or even just friends of ours will know it's coming up and think of something really interesting or really wacky. There is like people who see it the first time definitely lean towards kind of the pee and poo humor. But I think one of my favorite is like a close friend of ours has shared like a banking pin. There's all kinds of funny ones. People have really kind of taken it and made it even a more group interactive kind of thing where they're sharing something that they know will make other people kind of feel more comfortable to share something and kind of give a different theme than like it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be your darkest, most innermost secret. But you do have to participate if you want to get something out of it.
And it's a bit when they don't too. It's always been part of it, but people think that I'm seriously like in agony or something. And it's so funny to me every time it happens. But if no one shared a secret, I'm just like, come on, guys, I shared a secret with you. Just one little secret, just one. And I'll repeat that. And I'll keep repeating it like, oh my God, come on, y'all. I bared it all with y'all. And you here just shunning me. I think the longest it went on was for a goth show we did at the VFW.
Zero secrets.
A touring goth band from New York. It's like zero secrets. Even like usually the touring bands will at least chime in for the first secret.
One.
But no one. And then it was like finally somebody, after like me asking for like 4 or 5 minutes, I can't remember how long it was, but it was like a really long time. Somebody shared one and it was pretty funny, but I can't remember it. But like going to that like touring band sharing secrets, one of my favorites was this band from Chicago, Desert Liminal. They loved it, right? They loved it so much that one of the members came up and shared, when I really am angry at someone and it's my time of month, I throw my tampon at them. And I'm like, hell yeah. That's so cold.
That's funny. Man. Oh, that's great. That's really like you'll get the full gambit of humanity a little bit in that one, whether it's the I don't want to participate in the slightest, or I'm gonna like let you know just something wild.
So that song is technically pretty far before my time, with Ivan doing the sax line, which by the way is a C sharp drop, which is very tough to, not like tough to do, but tough to keep in tune, whatever, sax stuff. But Xochitl, I was always curious, like, what is the origin of that? Because like I know you from a lot of open mic stuff. And is it like crowd work kind of? Like I've always been kind of curious, like what little secret where you get the idea.
Oh, that's right. Sage knows you from comedy. I forget that all the time. Yeah, I mean, Ice Climber is not just like my musical project of mine and my friends. It's also a place where I try out performance art ideas, where because I've been in and still do practice performance art now for like 8 years. And it's also where my comedy has evolved. It's funny because it's kind of evolved, but also going back to where I came from, because I was doing stand-up and I wasn't really getting it. And then people needed acts for random cabarets or random little shows, or friends were doing a show for themselves or whatever. And I'm talking about like performance art theater shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started doing this like performance art meets like comedy meets like comedy bang bang, where they had like all those different effects and whatnot going on. And Reggie Watts specifically is who comes to mind.
Mm.
Kind of taking that idea that Reggie Watts already kind of had going on and running with it, right? So yes, crowd work has always been in my mind, and that's one of the first times that I got to actually try it as a little secret. And I was like, okay, then I guess more crowd work it is. Because like, as a band who's known for improv, people are expecting, you know, a jam band or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we're not a jam band. It's just not necessarily like the appropriate category for us.
Yeah.
Although I think that we're doing a show with like a jam band of sorts at the Caboose on the 6th of April. And I took it because of that, because I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah. Let's see how we land on that community. If we can get that community behind us, they'll be so supportive, and that'd be great. But if they don't like us, then they'll just solidify for me that we're not a jam band. But that's all to say that like I wanted to see what people would do if like they're expecting something and then they get something completely left field.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I wasn't expecting to get asked questions today, but also this is funny or weird at least.
Well, kind of moving on, we kind of touched on this a little bit already, which was you recorded with Ollie Jafar of Ecstatic Studio, does a lot of great, his own bands are fantastic, does a lot of great, works with a lot of great bands here in the scene. What was it like going into the studio with him for that like day and a half, just banging this thing out?
I mean, Ollie's super professional and like laid the ground rules, but like I have very little experience recording album. Like I've recorded maybe like one professional thing in the past, and it was like I lent my vocals to like a compilation, and that's the extent of like my experience with a studio, and it was like a home studio in a basement. But it's I didn't really get his advance, right? Like he was super detailed and everything, and I was like, okay, but what about this? Can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? And I feel like after like 20 exchanges, we finally got on the same page. And it wasn't because he wasn't trying, and it wasn't because I wasn't trying. It's just like, how do you bridge the gap between somebody who's been producing since he was 12, mixing, mastering since he was 12, with somebody who has never recorded an album in a studio, like a proper studio. But at the end, he let us be ourselves as much as, you know, recording a studio album allows. And he was really chill about it all. And he did phenomenal work. We showed up and he was pretty much set to go. I know a lot of us ran into problems that day. It had just snowed a lot the day before, I think, or something.
Yeah.
The roads were gross and slick and stuff. And then he was like, all right, so like, how do you want to tackle this? Because this is my suggestion based on like all the stuff we have to get through today, especially if you don't want to record for another day this long, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh, no, yeah, thanks for, you know, accommodating our like live approach, especially since like, I think through all of us, he kind of started realizing that like, we don't really devise songs the way most bands do, or like we don't sit down to write them and flesh them out over months and months and months a lot of the time like that, or anything like that. he realized that working live is what made us comfortable. So yeah, he did everything he could for that, and we're grateful. But then we also told him that we had so much faith in him, so that he should make executive decisions. And sometimes we would do one take. There was a couple songs we did one take of, and I'll just let people figure that out on their own. But
Mhm.
like, we do the take, and then everybody was like, "That feels like the take," and Ali would be like, "Yeah, it feels like the take. Anything that we need to do to make it the take, otherwise, we could do it in a little second post session if you guys want." And just having somebody with his experience tell us that we were right, or like that we were on the right path, and that he would help us get there, was like awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, but like we were there for 7-8 hours, and we did at least 3 takes for most songs. Like 3 takes that felt right. You know, we had a lot of
Yeah.
starts and stops that were like, oh no, or like I'm not present, or I messed up my timing, whatever. But yeah, about 3 takes for each song.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
it was
was
definitely. Oh, you go for it first, Joe.
yeah. Yeah, that was an incredibly like intense day because I think we 10 songs in about 8 hours, and so glad to have Ollie there just be yeah constant professional,
Mhm.
making everything smooth, well prepared. Uh, adapting to us adapting to him. It was more than I could ask for too, like amongst the chaos of our group too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, hope to work with him in the future again because he has a great ear, knows knows how to mix us now, master us, and
Mhm.
already has a feel for us.
I feel like it was the kind of recording that we couldn't have done to a scratch to a click track, was what I was going to say. We kind of went in there with the intention to make a scratch track and then just see what needed to be overdubbed based on kind of personal preference. But I mean, obviously, little secret, there's almost no way to do that with a click track. Stuff like a new to makeup would have been possible, but it felt really right to do it without it, and I think it took a lot of some of the frustration out of it. I think I think Ali did a really good job of getting prepared for kind of the amount of inputs we would have at once. So I
Mhm.
was the only one in a satellite booth, and everyone else was in the same room, but the guitars were ported out to that same satellite booth. But there was enough of a wall divider, and my condenser mic was close enough to me that it didn't really pick up any of the bleed, which was really nice. So it was definitely for what recording experience I've had, it was kind of an unconventional setup that worked just perfectly for the
Mhm.
kind of elements we were bringing. And I can't imagine having to work with almost like 10 inputs across 8 musicians, because Xochi's got 2. A lot of us just had a lot to put into to it. So it was really well managed. I was really impressed by that.
Yeah. And as we kind of wind down here, do y'all have like a favorite memory from this kind of like release cycle, whether it was in the studio getting things ready or even like your birthday show at the Amsterdam? Was there like a memory that you're kind of just like holding with you over from the last like couple months of like putting the album together?
For me, definitely the culmination of everything. Busting open that pinata
Mm-hmm.
on stage, s- just symbolic of our release,
Mm-hmm.
the release of the folks, the feeling of many folks about society at the moment. It was, yeah, that's my favorite part.
Hell yeah.
I can go next. I read the Racket a lot. I subscribe to that a lot. So it meant a lot to see Keith do a write up on us and to kind of like see like, you know, just kind of my sound described as new wave sax. I'd never kind of gone into recording with that kind of thought, but it's something that like my time with Xochi and with the band has turned me on to like a lot of really, really great turn of the century new wave music. And just like right before 20th century, 21st century new wave, kind of no wave and new wave music as well. So like that felt really nice. It felt like stuff that I had been listening to and really enjoying without putting like a hard effort to reproduce had kind of come out in my playing. And that was really interesting to me because I again, I'm like I feel that I'm a very methodical player, and so to get that description and to kind of listen back and hear just a different framing for the way I play meant a lot to me.
Every part of it was precious to me because of like who was involved, of course. I mean, it would have been precious regardless of which Ice Climber were to have played on the album or have done it, but yeah, it felt precious to me the whole way through. I think my favorite moment, and I'm gonna call it one moment, even though it was like multiple little moments, was like the last song that we wrote. No, yeah, for sure. Because it just came to me. And honestly, at first I was like, it's just a silly little game that we'll play for either warming up in rehearsal or like, you know, kill 3 to 6 minutes for a set or something. Because my idea was like, okay, so like I'll come up with this format and maybe the song will evolve over time and it won't always be the same 9 phrases along with no, yeah, for sure. But just from the inception of like getting excited about it and telling Jujo and Paul, and then them getting excited about it and being like, we're game, and then like coming into the studio, I mean not studio, but the rehearsal space, and like pitching it to everybody else and like kind of working on it with Paul and Jujo while like everybody else sets up, and then hearing it evolve even further with Andy, Sage, and Ella and James. Yeah, that's my favorite moment of the recording process, is like the cherry on top, the new song. No, yeah, for sure.
And so then I wonder kind of what's next for the band. You kind of in this like this new space of, sounds like, not fully moving on yet as you kind of celebrate this record, but also you guys have a lot of stuff in the can and some new worlds to kind of sonically explore. So what's next for Ice Climber?
Well, being around for 3 years makes you pretty certain on like a lot of stuff about yourself and about who you want to work with, and it gets you understanding of like people you've been working with the most. Personally, I want to do some decent amount of improv shows this year, especially if we find more guitarists that are willing to play with us more often than not. Or if not guitarists, keyboard players, you know, like 1 or 2. Maybe we're going to go into a keyboard era. Regardless, finding those players so that we have a fully rounded out, like at least quintet, would be great. Doing trio sets is great. Doing duo sets, quartets, they're all fun, but like I feel like a quintet, like there's just so much to it. So finding a tight quintet and bringing in our secret weapon James on occasion would be super duper cool. Finding ways to make some of these songs with 2 guitars sound equally impactful with 1 guitar. And then, yeah, like I said, doing more improv so that we can have some fun, stretch our muscles, grow more with new people, and figure out what the rest of that second album is going to sound like. Because still gestating,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
I think that's where we're headed, and if we're able to accomplish the aforementioned acquiring of individuals who feel passionately about our music and want to play with us as sort of lead instrument, hopefully we can tour. But I'm not going to tour until we have somebody that feels excited and wants to tour with us.
That's kind of an exciting place to come out of too, to release a self-titled and then just have a bunch of directions and a bunch of different kind of new components that we can bring to the table. So that's sometimes I'll record something and I'll immediately regret it because I'll just be playing those songs live, maybe better for the next couple months than I recorded it, and that recording feels like a curse. But with Ice Climber self-titled, that's not the case at all. I feel like we made something really beautiful with Ella and Andy, and we're gonna have an opportunity to do that again with, who knows? And that's kind of the exciting part, is that there's an element of unknown. And I think, not to brag, but I think there's certain bookers that like that aspect too, that you don't really know what flavor of Ice Climber you're going to get for what you book. And that keeps people coming back. It's kept me coming back, just as someone who now plays in like a cover band in another group and has written my own music for solo projects. Like it's exciting to not always know what you're going to have to do and have to think on the spot and then kind of reflect on that. So I appreciate that about Ice Climber, and I'm super excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, it's kind of piggybacking off of Sage. Yeah, exciting times over here. Yeah, yeah, as you say, we can go many, many away. We can go noisier. We could maybe chill out a little bit, but I think I'd want to maybe personally explore some more noise-ish type of things. I think I know I have a past little bit with Ice Climber. I usually use like one little multi-effect pedal, but
Zoom.
I know, right? The Zoom. But now I finally have a whole board. Well, I've had a board, but finally now I have the space to finally maybe explore some more tones for the group too.
Heck yeah. I mean, we have a project called, it's like, there's Bond Climber. And sometimes I'm like, is the Goth Syndicate part of Ice Climber, or is it something that will eventually just be its own thing? We'll see. But there is for sure the Ice Climber Noise Syndicate. And that started because I wanted to do some improv sets that were way more noise oriented with James. And we wanted to bring in people who were down with the freakiness, right? Down with the noise. So like Astrid Hubbard, who performs around as Asteroid, and they're also going to be debuting a synth punk band soon. Plays with us sometimes, and they played like the box fan. And Graham Findell has joined us on occasion because they're a big fan of like all sorts of no wave and industrial and like weird shit, right? But that doesn't mean that like the rest of Ice Climber can join in on the Noise Syndicate. And I'm pretty sure with like the things that Sage and Jujo have said in this interview that I want to bring them in to do some really weird shit, and build those specifically as the Ice Climber Noise Syndicate. So yeah, we're going to be exploring with these other identities as well, and maybe at some point put out an album as at least the Ice Climber Noise Syndicate, because with like the noise music, studio quality can be a thing if you want it to be, but a lot of the time it's a lot more DIY, and it allows you to do more for less. So it won't be like a true sequel to the Ice Climber album, but it will be a sequel of sorts when that eventually happens.
Awesome. So in the last final questions here, we always like to kind of leave some space for people to kind of shout out some of their local favorites or even like regional favorites. But what are those bands kind of that you've been listening to, whether they're like super small here or bands that like you're kind of peers with that people should know about and should be listening to? So this is not a non-comprehensive list because we could be here all night if we really
Exactly. And like, there's a ton of people who know that we love them
Yeah.
and stuff. So I think I am gonna like shout out like lesser known, like really new acts or acts that are regional, just for the sake of like a breath of fresh air. Because like we know Malamiko is the shit, right? Like they've been on the Ear Coffee podcast, they've played many shows with us. It's probably my most spun album locally of all time at this point. All Pleasant Dreams. But there's bands that are like coming out that are fucking awesome, and some that have come and went already, like they happened a year ago and then they fell apart. Roadside Casino, right, was amazing. I hope that band comes back in some iteration. But speaking of Duluth, there's a band that I keep wanting to see live and it hasn't aligned, so I keep trying to like put a show together, and their name is Cunt, or See You Next Tuesday. And super punk rock. The lead singer is full of energy and like a great performer. The whole band is really fun, and they're pretty new, and I'm excited to hear where they go from there. Another act that we played with touring, The Simpsons without the P.
Ooh.
Super
so good,
experimental jazz fusion, incredible band. They're from like a little town in the middle of nowhere, Illinois.
Illinois.
But they were one of the weirdest ones we played with. Kankakee, Illinois, I'm pretty sure. We played with them in Madison, and they were great. Like, if you like Ice Climber and you like the like more jazzy long form stuff we do, you're gonna love those guys. Incredible players. But otherwise, like, there's also this queer goth punk band, Destroy Slay from Chicago, that I've been really into their new record. And final shout out is also going to come from Chicago, Apathy. Like they call themselves extreme metal. It's just like visceral vocals against like sick riffs and drums. And I saw them at the Queer Ritual last year at Palmer's Patio. And yeah, Coral blew me away. So hopefully Apathy comes over here at some point, because I'd love to see them again. But yeah, those are my shout outs.
See, I would love to shout out Watches, local group. They played with us at our release show at Amsterdam. Killer duo.
Fucking amazing.
Had the pleasure of performing with their drummer, Emma, performed with us in Ice Climber at Zora Darling earlier, maybe like half a year ago or so. Incredible duo. Blew me away. I saw a video of them at Dusty's. Super impressed. But then hearing them in a massive, bigger setting was just incredible. Incredible. Still blown away. Yeah.
Kind of to bring up Roadside Casino, Mara Lovejoy's band, fantastic. I had them perform at my birthday, and so Mara Lovejoy was the guitarist, and she fronts a project, Mara Lovejoy's band. They jokingly called it a family band, and I bought it for a second, but they're just all good friends coming down from it. It made me laugh. I was like, really? That's great. But they were awesome, and I ended up following every member of them. They were really cool. I think it's a 3-piece It was awesome. It really made my birthday. It was really special. I really like Crash Cuddle in the scene. I have a big soft spot for two pieces, and they've just been bouncing around forever. They were, they wanted me to play with them for one thing, but I couldn't make it work, and I really wanted to. I love Crash Cuddle. Goon Tribune put something out at the end of last year. I caught them at the State Fair and a couple of other places for free and sometimes for money. Just an awesome band. Really cool combination of like modern jazz sounds with kind of modern hip hop and rap and R&B, and they always blow me away. Who else do I want to shout out? I had one more that's slipping from me. Yeah, we'll leave it at that though. Yeah, those are two of the ones that come to me right now.
Awesome. I do want to mention one last band, and it's because we were mixed and tracked and mastered by someone in it. Die. Because like Another Heaven is a well-known band by Aly, but Die is phenomenal in its own right. And every one of the people in that band is like super cool and talented. So yeah, they're always a favorite of mine to catch.
Yeah, that last record they put out was like Red Hand. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. So good. But anyway, well, cool. And finally, where can people go to keep up to date on all things Ice Climber? The next shows. Where can they go to find merch? Where can they find all things Ice Climber?
So I haven't put up leftover merch from the show because I've been waiting for these dang tapes to come from Canada. And yeah, so I finally got them shipped over. They sent me the confirmation, and I keep missing the FedEx guy. Literally, like I'll be waiting all day, and then I'll have to go to the bathroom, and he comes right at those like 5 minutes I'm in the bathroom or something. So as soon as we can get those tapes dubbed, I'll put them on the Bandcamp, iceclimber.bandcamp.com. And that's where you'll find our debut self-title. That's where you'll find our shirts and our lyric booklets that we have left over. When it comes to like our shows, I'm trying to come up with a better place to promote the shows. I know you can always go to the Undercurrent page, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, and there's like another canceled platform, Google.
Yeah.
And they're like in a Google spreadsheet that Gravy made of Undercurrents, there's also like all the shows. But right now the best place is still Meta. But if you're a musician, you really should check out Teacup, the Twin Cities United Performers. And even if you're not a musician and you're part of the music industry, you should check them out and join the forum. We call it the Cup Board. So because it's the Teacup board. Check out the Cup Board. It's like an old school style forum for musicians and people in the music industry to like get together, talk about problems, share resources and whatnot. But we have a calendar there too that we populate by like bringing in the Undercurrents list and also doing work ourselves and like populating it. So that'd be another place where you can support actual people, actual musicians of the Twin Cities, and see like events and other stuff if you are in the music industry.
Well, awesome. That's everything I got for y'all. Thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me. Congratulations on the self-titled. It's truly fantastic. If those listening haven't listened to it yet, they need to go do so immediately. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share so we can stand out against the sea of other music podcasts. You can find information and other important links in the show notes of this episode. If you would like to support us, please consider subscribing on Patreon for early access to live sessions and other bonus content. You can also subscribe to our Substack for a regular newsletter with reviews, ramblings, and anything else we have to say. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.